must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
It is ridiculous and it is against the laws of nature that we can have somebody sitting pretty who takes home more money than the credible entrepreneur who is doing actual production of goods and services.
We always say it as it is.
It is only in this country that when a thief is arrested, you hear elders from their tribe saying, "He is our son and he is our thief."
If you are deviant
Yes.
and I call you leader,
Yes.
probably you are already a leader, but you are leading in the wrong direction.
We want to see the role of the youth
Yeah.
in the security,
Yes.
governance,
Yes.
and development.
The youth that I meet and work with here, you know, we call them the millennials and X's and Y's, this and that. They don't necessarily want to live like their fathers and grandfathers,
Yes.
do business like their fathers and grandfathers. They're more independent, they're better educated, and they're the ones that are making everything move in this region.
We look at the issues, we talk about issues that impact people's lives in Africa.
The African peoples themselves continue to cheer bad leaders, and because they cheer them on, they continue to be misled.
Let me ask you, doctor, would you rather be somebody who does not enjoy so much freedom but you are rich?
Yes.
Or you'd rather be poor who you are actually imprisoned by the poverty itself?
My goal is not to come here and say, I want the majority ownership, I want to own this, I want to own that, I want to do this. My goal is we all make money and we're all happy, and I help build a big business here.
Punchline is for Africa, with Africa, from Africa.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us about 3 p.m. here in Nairobi. I trust that you're well. This is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to look at the news-making headlines across the African continent. Earlier on, we had a conversation about South Sudan and how much the international communities and other countries can do to help South Sudan, and it was quite an engaging conversation there, and we saw a lot of South Sudanese coming out and registering their dissatisfaction with the current crop of leadership there in South Sudan. And so that is a conversation we shall continue to have here. And thank you so much, wherever you're watching us from. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Miriam Mugutu, and let's just get into the news now. And we start with South Africa, and Zinzi Mandela, the daughter of South Africa's anti-apartheid icon, Nelson Mandela, and Winnie Madikizela Mandela, has passed away. A public broadcaster, SABC has reported. Now, she passed away in Johannesburg on Monday morning, aged 59. The death has been confirmed by a family source. SABC has reported she was the South African ambassador to Denmark. And still staying with South Africa, and the immediate ban on alcohol sales in South Africa has not only come as a shock to many, but has been met with unhappiness from some quarters. The country's main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, has accused the government of using alcohol ban as a scapegoat for its failures to provide adequate health care amid the coronavirus crisis. Businesses are not thrilled either, and the alcohol industry is a massive employer, and concerns have been expressed how the livelihoods of those who rely on this industry will be protected in the coming weeks. But President Cyril Ramaphosa and his government believe the decision, though a difficult one to make, is necessary if the country has any hope of saving lives. And we go to Somalia, where the leaders of Somalia's 5 regional states have said the country is not ready to hold its first one-person, one-vote election this year due to insecurity and logistical challenges. In a communique after a 2-day meeting in the central town of Dushar Mareb, the presidents of Galmudug, Puntland, Jubaland, Hirshabelle, and Southwest State called for an alternative election model. They also called for a meeting with the federal government to seek a political negotiated electoral model. Now, they, however, said they will reject any attempt to extend the terms of the federal president and prime minister. Now, Somalia's electoral chief Halima Ibrahim last month called for the elections to be postponed to August 2021, citing lack of funds, insecurity, flooding, and the coronavirus pandemic. And still staying with Somalia, and the former Somali Prime Minister Hassan Abshir Farah has died in Turkey at the age of 75. He held the post between 2001 and 2003 under interim President Abdi Qasim Salat Hassan. Now, he also served as the mayor of the capital Mogadishu in the 1970s. President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo announced his death, saying Mr. Farah had played a positive role in the governance and development of Somalia. The government has formed a committee to organize a state funeral for him, but no date has been set aside. Meanwhile, the former president of the semi-autonomous Somalia region of Puntland, Mohamed Abdi Hashi, also has died in Kenya's capital here in Nairobi. He was Puntland's first vice president and second president from 2004 and 2005. And we go to South Sudan, and some of the 16 health workers in South Sudan who have tested positive for coronavirus have resigned, and the country's health ministry has said 8 workers resigned last week due to pressure from their families who expressed concerns that they might bring the virus home and infect the family members. The ministry said some are thought to have deserted duty after witnessing COVID-19 patients dying. The 8 include 4 hygienists and 4 nurses, according to Professor Mayen Machut Achiek, a spokesperson of the National COVID-19 Task Force in South Sudan. And then still staying with South Sudan, President Salva Kiir has admitted that non-oil revenues are not being fully remitted into the single block account of the National Revenue Authority. Established in 2018, the Revenue Authority is mandated to assess, collect, administrate, and enforce laws relating to taxation and revenues, but the tax collecting body is a subject of continuous criticism over its handling of non-oil revenues across the country. In 2019, Minister Salvatore Garang Mabiordit fired the then NRA Commissioner General Dr. Olympio Atipoy without explanations. The Ghanaian national was appointed by President Kiir in 2018 through a deal with the African Development Bank, and the former NRA boss would inform the public regularly on the amount collected and the challenges faced in reforming the public accountability and transparency sector. So that guy was from Ghana, and then they put a South Sudanese there at the Revenue, Authority, and this new Commissioner General of the National Revenue Authority, Rajok Bulen, immediately suspended the announcements of the monthly collections without satisfactory reason. That is South Sudan for you. And we go to Libya, and Libya's national oil company has accused the United Arab Emirates of instructing renegade forces to reimpose a blockade of oil exports. The country recently resumed oil exports after a halt of nearly 6 years caused by conflict and political upheaval now, but the oil company said the blockade was reinstated over the weekend after Libya National Army forces loyal to General Khalifa Haftar announced the blocking of the export of oil from the country. Neither the LNA nor the UAE have immediately reacted to the company's accusation. Oil exports are the backbone of Libya's economy, with the country being among the top producers. And we go to Madagascar, where 2 Madagascar lawmakers, 1 member of the Senate and 1 deputy, have died after contracting coronavirus. President Andry Rajoelina is reported to have announced on Sunday. Mr. Rajoelina also said 11 other deputies and 14 senators have also tested positive for coronavirus. The government had last week placed one of its main regions, which covers the capital Antananarivo, under a strict lockdown following a surge in coronavirus infections. We go to Nigeria, and Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has publicly reacted for the first time to the suspension of the head of the country's anti-corruption agency. President Buhari said the suspension of Ibrahim Magu is an indication that Nigeria's fight against corruption is real and active. According to a statement released through its spokesperson, now speaking of the importance of accountability and transparency, President Buhari said Nigerians must realize that they will be held accountable. He said the suspension of the Economic and Finance Crimes Commission boss will enable the anti-corruption agency to continue its work without the cloud of any investigation over its head. Mr. Magu was arrested on Monday following allegations of abuse of office. He is accused of stealing money that his anti-corruption agency had confiscated during its operation. So as an anti-corruption agency, you recover this money, and instead of giving it back to the public coffers, you steal it. You recover it from the people who stole it, I'm assuming from public funds especially. And then as the person who is doing the recovery, you also steal it. You don't hand over the whole of it. It's quite interesting there. Interesting story there from Nigeria. And we head to, where else? We go to Mali, where opposition leaders in Mali have called for President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta to resign after they rejected concessions intended to quell growing unrest. At least 4 people were killed during the street protests on Friday, and there were further clashes on Saturday. It prompted the president to dissolve a top court, which has been at the center of the controversy after it overturned provincial election results in March, but a coalition of opposition leaders rejected his proposal shortly after. And we go to Burundi, where over 1,200 people were tested for COVID-19 in 3 communes in Bujumbura, with the health ministry say 41 people tested positive at last week after the government launched a mass testing campaign in the country. And then we go to Cameroon, where some 42 prisoners of the Anglophone crisis detained at the Yaoundé Central Prison have petitioned the government of Cameroon on 4 conditions necessary for negotiations to kick off for the global ceasefire, a call from the United Nations to be effective in the restive northwest and southwest regions. In the letter dated Wednesday, July 8th, the prisoner says that they align themselves to the conditions laid by the Amazonian leadership in detention, headed by Julius Ayuk Tabe, and advanced 4 of them. Now they demanded the withdrawal of Cameroon military trucks and gear from the streets and villages of the Anglophone regions back into their barracks, and the unconditional release and general amnesty of all detainees arrested because of the conflict and locked up in the various detention centers in Cameroon. Also, granting of amnesty for all Amazonian refugees around the world to come back home without fear of police harassment, and as well as setting up of time frame for negotiations in the presence of third party in a neutral soil. That is quite interesting. Now, the letter comes in days after information filtered on possible negotiations ongoing between the government of Cameroon and Amazonian leaders towards declaring a ceasefire in the northwest and southwest regions rocked by the Anglophone crisis that has caused untold sufferings to the people for close to 4 years today. And then we end with some news from Biafra. The leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, on Saturday disagreed with a statement credited to the special advisor of President Muhammadu Buhari on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, that Muhammadu Buhari was not against the people of Biafra. Kanu described such a statement as a complete falsehood, adding that it can only deceive the gullible, but certainly not those familiar with the history. Kanu described such a statement, of course, as I said there, complete falsehood. Now, the IPOB leader, who spoke in a statement by his media and publicity secretary, Emma Powerful, maintained that Biafra citizens have suffered enough persecution and killings at the slightest provocation on several occasions. And I'll quote Mr. Kanu here as he continued to say that The truth, rather, is that people of Biafra have continued to be victims of state persecution and calculated elimination. Biafrans have been slaughtered at the slightest provocation on several occasions since the unholy amalgamation of Nigeria in 1914. A Nigerian government and her partners in crime are sponsoring the killings and heartless massacres of Biafrans since 1945 till date. That is a statement from Nnamdi Kanu there. He was responding on Saturday, and he disagreed because, remember, President Buhari, by the way, that is the latest news from around the continent. If there's anything else I have left out there, please kindly share with me on the comment section, and I'll be happy to read with the rest of our viewers. Sorry. So, on Saturday, Kanu spoke here, and he was responding to what President Buhari, through the special advisor, his name is Adesina. He's made several, statements before that have been a bit controversial on behalf of President Buhari. So he said that President Buhari is not against Biafra. So we were having this conversation here yesterday, and we wondered, now that President Buhari is coming out through his special advisor saying he's not against Biafra, is he in essence saying that he is ready and willing to offer, Biafrans, the agitators who wants to go and form their own country, a referendum, because that will be the ultimate, I think, support that Biafrans would want from the government of Nigeria, either that or nothing else. So by his special advisor coming out and saying, the president is not opposed to whatever Biafrans are doing, or is not against the people of Biafra. In essence, what is he trying to say? Can he come out clearly and say, is he supporting the secession? Is he supporting what Biafrans have been wanting, that is the referendum? What is he saying in essence there, President Buhari? Can you come out and tell, perhaps address that? Because I'm sure the people from that part of Nigeria will be happy to hear you say that very clearly, and expound on what you mean, because if you are not against the people of Biafra, then you would know that what they want is not to stay in Nigeria, is to leave. So how would you address that? Are you perhaps now wanting to create a government that will be more inclusive, that will be more accommodative, that will ensure that everybody is made to feel like part of Nigeria, and not a section of your citizens there will feel like they are being treated as second-class citizens? So this is a bit confusing here. Double messaging being sent there by Buhari's camp. So I think this is something that he should come out and address. Another confusing situation here, but perhaps, sometimes back last week, there was some information that the government of Cameroon was having private talks with the leaders of, the Anglophone region who are in jail, that is being led by the leader Julius Ayuk Tabe, about a possible ceasefire over the tensions and the killings and the chaos that have gone on in that region, between the military of the government of Cameroon and also the Anglophone fighters there. The Anglophones also have a similar plight as those of Biafrans. They're also seeking for secession. They also are seeking to have their own independence. They're also seeking to have a referendum. And of course, Paul Biya has made it very categorical. That is not something he will be doing in his lifetime. So the news that broke that the government is having talks with some Anglophone leaders there was met with a lot of mixed reactions. And of course, in a few days, the government of Cameroon came out and cleared the air and said, no, the government of Cameroon is not in talks in any way, shape or form with the leadership of Ambazonia or Anglophones there. So a very mixed information there from Cameroon. But now this leadership of Anglophones who have been in jail, remember they were slapped with a life sentence there, they come out and say if the government is really seeking for a ceasefire and a lasting solutions, but they're laying forward four points that they would want the government of Cameroon to adhere to, should there be any, for them to even think about coming to the table. And one of these things, the preconditions that they laid there is they demanded the withdrawal of all Cameroonian military trucks and gear from the streets and villages of the Anglophone regions back into their barracks. By back into their barracks, that means back to the Francophone part of Cameroon, and to remove the barracks from the Anglophone region. And it's just the other day that another barracks, I think the government of Cameroon started building a military barracks was it in Buea, or closer to where we witnessed the latest skirmishes there. So I don't know if this is something, a project that President Paul Biya will be willing to abandon, because the Anglophone leaders are demanding, if you want us to come and talk, if you want us to this ceasefire to be lasting, then you have to move, the military tracks and the military people, the army of Cameroon, from Anglophone region back to their barracks, as in back to the Francophone part of Cameroon. And the second one is the unconditional release and general amnesty of all detainees arrested because of the conflict and locked up in various detention centers of Cameroon. And the third one is granting of amnesty of all Ambazonian refugees around the world to come back home without fear of police harassment. I don't know if that will be possible. And the fourth one, and the last one, is that the setting up of a time frame for negotiations in the presence of a third party on a neutral soil. Now, the letter comes in days after information filtered on possible negotiations ongoing between the government of Cameroon and Ambazonia leaders towards declaring a ceasefire in the northwest and southwest regions there, rocked by the Anglophone crisis that has caused untold sufferings to the people for close to 4 years today. So, all right, I don't know if Paul Biya, the government, the president of Cameroon, will be willing to listen to any of these demands that have been made there by the Anglophone leaders. Yes, so let's just see how that will play out. And there you go. So something else that I would like for us to talk about, and of course there, Nnamdi Kanu coming up on Saturday and saying that He's disagreeing with the special advisor to President Buhari, who came out, Mr. Femi Adesina, that is the special advisor to President Buhari, who came out and said that President Buhari has nothing against the people of Biafra. So, as I said, I began there by saying earlier, that's a bit confusing. So, if he does not have anything against, Biafra, so what does that mean? What exactly is President Buhari saying? Is he saying now he's had enough, of the complaints and the cries and what is happening there, and the people who wants to secede and form their own country, now he's willing to offer a referendum, or he's not against them because he wants to create a more inclusive, a more cohesive Nigeria, where everybody feels protected and Boko Haram is not running a mockery of the whole government? What does he mean exactly here when he comes to say that President Buhari is not against the people of Biafra, against Biafra? That is what his special advisor was saying. If you can, decipher that message from President Buhari there for me, because it is quite confusing. And let's see what you guys are saying out here. Emmanuel Malwal, you're saying that is South Sudan we want. Okay, John Paul, you're saying it's burning right now in Nigeria. Dr. Batsanga, no peace. Is it? I saw. Is it the World Trade Center? I didn't know. You guys had in Nigeria. There was in Lagos. There was a World Trade Center, and I think it's burning as we speak. I don't know what is happening, but there seems to be a problem there in Nigeria. So when you're saying it's burning, do you mean the World Trade Center that I read a while ago that caught fire? What set it on fire? What is the problem? Is it an electrical fault? What is going on? If you have any more information from that part, John Paul, please, and the rest of you, could you please share with me so that we can know what is happening there in Nigeria? And also, Mike Napo, you're saying, hello, good people. We, the people of Biafra, need our freedom from Nigerian area. Emeka Ehrim, you're saying, thank you for talking. All right, thank you so much. And Dominique Nwandu also, thank you so much. So now can we just look at As we started the news, of course, the daughter of former president and now the late Nelson Mandela there has died. In South Africa. She was the South African ambassador to Denmark. She passed on this morning in Johannesburg at the age of 59. So our condolences to the people of South Africa and the family of the late Nelson Mandela there. Her name is Zinzi Mandela. Of course, the daughter of Nelson Mandela and now also the late Winnie Madikizela Mandela there. So our condolences are in order there to the family and friends and the people of South Africa. And something else that even I think is trending right now as we speak, the immediate ban of alcohol in South Africa. And I remember, was it last week, Julius Malema, the opposition leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters Party, EFF, Julius Malema, I think about 2 weeks ago, he came out and said, when there was an alcohol ban that was imposed just after the measures that were put in place in South Africa to curb the spread of COVID-19, there seemed to be, that brought COVID-19 under control. But now he was arguing that the figures have spiked because of the lifting of the alcohol ban and cigarette smoking. So now they were asking, for he asked that the government reimpose this ban, and it is bringing a lot of problems there in South Africa. And I think it is trending right now. And a lot of people who just enjoy their drink there are not very happy with this ban that has been effected immediately. So the immediate ban on alcohol sales in South Africa has not only come as a shock to many, but has been met with unhappiness from a lot of quarters there in South Africa. They are saying alcohol is the key factors, that as one of the driving forces to the spread of COVID-19. So apparently, according to the professionals then and the people who have been monitoring the situation, they're saying since, the lifting of the alcohol ban, of course, the cases have gone so high. So now the government has been forced to reintroduce the alcohol ban. I don't know what you make of this, I don't know what you make of this, but it is a conversation that is even trending right now as you speak on Twitter. Thank you so much. Jimmy Prince, you're saying, hi Miriam, you need Biafra. Okay, and President Buhari is saying he has no problem with Biafra. And I've been trying to understand, what does President Buhari mean by that? He said this through his special advisor, Mr. Femi Adesina. He said President Buhari has no problem with Biafra. I don't know what you make of that. I don't know what President Buhari means by that. Perhaps it is time he's considering to give you guys the referendum that you've been asking for. I'm not sure, but Vichy could come out and clear that. By him saying that he does not have a problem with Biafra, what exactly does he mean by that? What does that mean? What is the implication? What is the way forward? What now then? Because all we know is the government of Nigeria, not just Buhari, even the previous governments, the issue of Biafra is something that they've been dealing with in a very interesting way, and nobody has really been paying attention so much in the plight of the people of Biafra and what they want there. So President Buhari there is saying that he does not have a problem with you guys. So I don't know what he means. Maybe you can help me understand exactly what President Buhari means by saying he does not have a problem with Biafra. Does that mean that perhaps he has seen the light that you guys have seen and might maybe consider giving a referendum? I don't know. I'm just trying to understand that. And in South Sudan, this is a conversation we had earlier about South Sudan, and now President Salva Kiir has come out and admitted that non-oil revenues are not fully being remitted into the single block account of the National Revenue Authority. This was established in 2018, and the first person that was put in that was they got somebody, Dr. Olympio Atipoe, from Ghana to come and head this very important institution, the National Revenue Authority, that collect all the taxes in South Sudan. So when Dr. Olympio from Ghana was at the helm of this institution, he used to give regular regular public update and the money that was being collected in South Sudan. And then somebody else came in and removed him, and they placed a South Sudanese there. So after this new person was placed, he has not been giving a regular update on what is happening. And just last week, there was a report that a lot of revenues that are being collected in the country are going to personal accounts. And what a shame this is. And we were just talking about the situation in South Sudan earlier this morning. And, of course, South Sudan still needs a lot of help from international key players and also its neighbors and Africa as a whole. But if you hear such information coming from South Sudan, you wonder, how can you tell us you don't have money? Even the little that you're collecting in terms of revenue, you cannot account for. It is going, in private accounts, and then you're coming and telling us that you don't have money to support the peace process. Soldiers are dying in the cantonment sites. Conditions, they are terrible. They're leaving the sites, even sleeping back into the community with their guns and things like that. And yet there's money that cannot be accounted for. How do we help South Sudan seriously when issues like this are arising? So, yes, that is a conversation we had earlier, so I would not want to go fully into it. But now it's interesting that President Salva Kiir is coming out and actually admitting it is very true. Money that is being collected as revenue for South Sudan ends up in a few individuals' personal accounts there. What a shame that is from South Sudan. And we've seen there the protests continue, of course, in Mali there, and President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, I don't know if he will resign, because that is what the opposition is calling for. And we saw our protesters on Friday even going and attacking the parliament there. They made their way inside the parliament building, inside the compound, but they did not go inside parliament itself. But they caused a lot of, chaos there, and a lot of vandalism took place there in Mali. So President of Mali, as you speak, is under, I don't want to say he's under siege, but he's under a lot of pressure, and the opposition are demanding for nothing less but his resignation there. So let's see how that will work out. And Madagascar, okay, the land where we thought our solution for Africa in terms of COVID-19 will come, it appears things have just gone from bad to worse. And now, according to President Andre Rajoelina, a few legislators there have died. He's saying 2 lawmakers have died. One of the Senate and 1 deputy are saying have died after contracting COVID-19. The cases right now says that 14 senators have also tested, positive for COVID-19. So, that is, it's getting out of hand there. The figures have continued to spike there in Madagascar, but we are hoping that, all shall be well, as we do in the rest of African countries. And we go back to Nigeria, where Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has publicly reacted for the first time to the suspension of the head of the country's anti-corruption agency. And President Buhari said the suspension of Ibrahim Magu is an indication that Nigeria's fight against corruption is real and active. Okay, it's very real and active, according to a statement released through spokesperson. Speaking of the importance of accountability and transparency, President Buhari said Nigerians must realize that they will be held accountable. He said the suspension of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission boss will enable the anti-corruption agency to continue its work without the cloud of an investigation over its head. Now, Mr. Magu was arrested on Monday following allegations of abuse of office, and he is accused of stealing money that his anti-corruption agency had confiscated during its operation. Now, that is the point that really got me, because at what point do you put it's like you put what, like hyena to watch over sheep? Like in this situation, this is a person that headed the anti-corruption unit in the country that was responsible to recover the stolen funds from the public. And then after he has recovered the stolen assets and funds and money from the public, he now steals them and keeps it. How does that even make sense? So Mr. Magu is accused of stealing the money that the anti-corruption agency had confiscated during its operations. I don't know if you understand this story. I need to know what really is happening there in Nigeria. You go to recover the funds that people have stolen from the public, and you have the responsibility and mandate to recover that, to investigate and and bring back what has been stolen from the public, and then you go ahead and steal the same thing that you have recovered. In what world does that even happen? It's quite interesting there. And Elvis and Sonyong, you're saying, Miriam, please talk about the people of former British Cameroon, aka Ambazonia, to stop the genocide. And I think I just read that news. I think, Elvis, you're not here yet. Maybe I should do that before I leave. The latest there from Anglophone, and some 42 prisoners. Please pay attention, Ayong. All right. Thank you so much. I'm just doing this because you're our ardent, watcher here, and I think you just joined, but I think I'd covered that news just earlier. So now some 42 prisoners of the Anglophone crisis detained at the Yaoundé Central Prison have petitioned the government of Cameroon on 4 conditions necessary for negotiations to kick off the global ceasefire call from the United Nations to be effective in the restive northwest and southwest regions. And the letter dated Wednesday, July 8th, the prisoners say they aligned themselves to the conditions laid by the Amazonian leadership in detention, headed by Julius Ayuk Tabe, and advance 4 of them. Now they demand the first one. They have 4 conditions before any ceasefire talks starts, because the ceasefires have been demanded by the United Nations. Remember, the United Nations has been putting a lot of pressure on President Paul Biya to find a peaceful solution to the crisis there between his government and the Anglophones, all right? So the first condition that the Anglophone leaders are demanding is they demand the withdrawal of Cameroon military trucks and gear from the streets and villages of the Anglophone regions back into their barracks. And the second condition is the unconditional release and general amnesty of all detainees arrested because of the conflict and locked up in the various detention centers of Cameroon. And the third one is the granting of amnesty for all Ambazonian refugees around the world to come back home without fear of police harassment. And the fourth one, the setting up of a time frame for negotiations in the presence of a third party on a neutral soil, meaning not in Cameroon, in a different country. So the negotiations, if they want to take place, then it should be out of Cameroon. So that is just the latest there, Ayong. I hope that you can tell me what you make of this. And Nana Lopez Buhari, you're saying Buhari has been dead 3 years now. Okay, all right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, our viewers, wherever you're watching us from. I think we had so much talking in the morning, so I need to go rest my voice so that tomorrow we can meet here and have another show. Meet us here tomorrow, I think 10 a.m. East African time, so that we can bring in the latest in Kenya and indeed across the continent. My name is Miriam Mugutu. Thank you so much for watching, and a very good afternoon to you.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.